for anybody's viewing pleasure. All right, so I'm Natasha Diaz. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Again, we're joined here in person in our building conference room, and we're also joined virtually online. The purpose of this meeting, and we decided to start having these quarterly meetings to hear back from the community on your feedback, suggestions, commentary on the building department and the building department processes. The purpose of this meeting is to hear from you. So the way we're going to manage this is I ask that you raise your hands by using the raise your hands icon, and we will listen to everybody. We're taking down notes. We're listening to your commentary. The city is interested in your commentary and improving on any suggestions that are able to do. We are also in the process of hiring a consultant that will also be reviewing any comments that you provide to us on suggestions, on your concerns, whether it be through our survey online or through these quarterly feedback sessions. We held the last one of these feedback sessions in November, and that is available as well online for if you want to see that session, and this is our second session. I was waiting a couple minutes for our building director, Anna, to get here. So, but we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So we'll take any hands or in the audience here in the conference room, if you want to go first, since you have joined us here, we'd like to let you go first.
Sure, I appreciate that. One of the suggestions that we had was, as it relates to when we get workflows, we still see that incorrect trades or unnecessary trades are being added to the workflow. We still see that happening.
So one thing we talked about today actually was going back to the routing forms, which kind of puts the burden on you to select who would be reviewing. And mainly we wanted to do that just for revision, because as you know, most of the specific permit types already have a predetermined workflow with those. And usually we don't have a problem with those. The ones we usually have concerns with are revisions that add everybody. So we were actually discussing today putting the routing form back on the applicant to check off who should be reviewed.
My only response to that would be there are a lot of people that aren't familiar.
Right.
And I would hate for them to get caught up in that. If there was a way we could have like a hybrid that if the applicant wants to include a routing form, then we would follow the routing form.
Well, what we would do is always check that routing form and make sure you have checked off all the right ones. But yes, you're right. There are people that have no idea, especially when it comes to like the other departments, environmental planning, public works. They don't really know if those departments need to be seeing them or not. So that's where
I think that's why we did away with the routing forms from before, because there was people that just weren't checking off the right boxes. But please continue.
And I don't know if maybe the solution is something different, like a designated person that the public contact when they have an issue with the workflow. So that that can just be addressed. Maybe you call that person, you get them on the phone, you walk them through. It's done. I don't know. Just throwing it out there, but yeah, again,
Incorrect trades on plan reviews.
yeah, I mean, the hardest ones are obviously zoning and fire. When those get added unnecessarily, to get them removed becomes very difficult.
Okay.
Um,
And if everyone virtually can hear us okay, if somebody can just drop me a yes in the chat box, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
one other feedback that I had was, I know that, as we discussed earlier, everybody's struggling with, hiring people. Everyone is short-staffed. I imagine you guys are as well. But things, you know, have been taking longer than usual, and specifically the things that are over the counter, change of contractor, contractor registration, things like that. If there was an option where we can do those in person and just come in person, ideally not with a meeting, but you know, you just wait your turn.
You can,
We can do that.
for like over-the-counter processes, change of contractor. What was the other one you mentioned?
Change of contractor or an extension or a renewal. Also contractor registration.
So any over-the-counter processes like that, those are considered over-the-counter processes that only need a clerk to check and update that information, can be done in person.
What about a sub permit? No plan review? The counter?
Yeah.
We can do over the counter sub permit?
Yeah.
And we don't need an appointment. We just come in and wait our.
We always prefer appointments, because that allows us to manage our resources, and like you mentioned in the beginning, hiring, you know, staffing is, everybody's low on staff. So appointments always help for us to make sure we have people there, but we will not turn you away if you want.
Okay. That's great news. Thank you. I don't know if somebody else has a question. I have a couple more, but I'll let.
Do you want to give it one more?
Sure. The next one I had was regarding, the intake. Intake should be reviewed once the workflow's open, as opposed to when the reviews are done. We've been seeing the intake only being completed at the end of once all reviews have done. And the problem with that is a lot of times the reviewers ask for the application to be updated. So you'll fix it on the application, you'll upload, they'll create a workflow, the reviewer will look in the system and the description still hold. So he'll leave that comment, even though the application's there, and it's because intake hasn't updated it, I guess.
So intake should be reviewing concurrently. So permit intake opens up at the same time as all the other reviews. So you're saying that you're seeing it at the end?
We're seeing that linger towards the end.
So that shouldn't be the case. It happens concurrently. So if you do come across one that only happens at the end, then let us know, but that is a concurrent.
Okay.
But yeah, but if you updated something on the application, then that change should also be reflected.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into this last one, which was, when resubmitting corrections that include a revised application or a cost affidavit, the workflow is not read for permit intake. I guess that would be in the event permit intake was already approved. When they're creating the workflow, they're not identifying that there's a permit app that would need to get reviewed by intake. And so they're not opening up intake as part of the
Again.
workflow.
So that's another, they should be doing it, so let us know, because that is another procedure. If you upload a new application, even though permit intake has previously approved, they should be putting permit intake back on.
Application or cost affidavit.
Yeah, anything permit intake review related.
Sorry I'm late.
Anna has
I
joined us.
apologize. I was in back-to-back meetings all day long. I got 15 minutes for lunch, so I was very excited about that. But everything ran a little bit late in the afternoon.
So we went ahead and started.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm
We have
excited.
17 people online and here.
I'm really excited to get the feedback. As you know, I've been sort of hoping to get feedback. I did reach out to the chamber to see if they would spread the word and we get more feedback, because the only way we can improve, analyze what we're doing is from the feedback. We send out monthly surveys, we look through those. Some of those have items we can follow up on, some of them do not. So the feedback is the only way for us to know what's working and what isn't working. And especially when we get the feedback from contractors, from architects and from expediters that are possibly using lots of different municipalities. You may have seen something work someplace that seems to, I love how this works, and we can explore that. We're always looking for ways to improve, and the only ways, and while all of us are looking, we're also trying to get the job done. So perhaps sometimes we may not do as much research into other building departments and their processes. We're definitely not necessarily applying to them. So for those of you that do apply in several places, we look forward to the feedback of if you've seen something that works to see where we can improve in that way. I know we get some feedback monthly on our surveys, but the idea from this is to go a little bit more into the industry and see what is and isn't working across the board. And for those of you joining us virtually, I hope that you feel comfortable in speaking, because I don't think anyone wants to hear me talk that much.
So Javon kicked us off with some of his suggestions. Thank you. And if you want to come, we'll come back to you after if you have more. And then we have, what's your name?
My name is Fernando.
Fernando? Okay.
Yes.
So Fernando, go ahead.
Well, for years I've been helping local customers, stores, to get permits because, the city is very picky because the building must look nice, so they want to have all the signs under regulation. So I used to help a lot of customers coming here, make the line, get the permit approval for them so they can have a sign and they can run the business in a way they can make money. Otherwise, without the sign, it's no business. And so now I cannot do it in person. I try to do it online. It's complicated for me, very complicated for me.
So what you cannot do is have a review done in person. You will need to have a CSS account, and you can bring the documents and have them scanned by us. It may take a little bit longer. It will not be the walkthrough plan review that you were used to. We can look in the rear view mirror. There's a lot of reasons why the walkthrough went away. And some of the reasons have to do with us not necessarily having the best control of the documents. Sometimes things walked away from the walkthrough. Other times the process was started and was only done part way 3 or 4 times in a row before it did all the reviews. So we spent more time on it. We then tried to limit it to 50 and do them all the way through in a day. But that was also a complaint because of the number, and people would line up here at 4 o'clock in the morning for that. So we've gone through several iterations. The online system is going to stay. If you need assistance, our North Beach office is set up specifically for people that need the assistance.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys can help me the first time to do it, because
no,
yesterday I tried, and then what I get a message that says, sorry, the registration process is unavailable at this time.
So, yeah, so it sounds like technology, right, complications, and
And my problem is I have cataracts. It's very hard for me to focus, on.
I understand. I have cataracts too.
I have everything ready, I can make it out, I don't know. But,
So one of the things, we have a monthly training class, and it's also available for individuals. So once a month, it is the 3rd Thursday of every month, we have a class on how to sign in.
Today,
no, the next one would be March 16th, the 3rd Thursday of every month.
I'm sorry, yeah, okay, yes.
The 3rd Thursday of every month, we have a training here
So we
in
can,
person.
so I can do my first one here, so I know what I'm doing, and then the next time,
Yes,
because to tell you the truth, a lot of the inspectors, they went to the stores and they, oh, you have a permit for the signs. And some people have the permit, they just didn't know, or the employee didn't know, and the inspector asked them to remove the signage, even when they already have the permit. And when I talked to an inspector on the street one day, he told me, oh yeah, we don't check with the city we don't check with the
So
with the system.
if that's happened where someone removed a sign that had a permit, you can go back to the previous permitted sign and talk to somebody that does signs.
Yeah, but then the people have to make the signs again, spend more money again, and
Because they removed
people-
it. I mean, I don't know, we do not do sign enforcement in the building department. The city does it, it's done through city code.
yeah,
So I want you, we are the building department, and if building code comes and tells you you don't have something, they would have to check the permit.
yeah, but the
But
inspector
building
didn't
code
check.
is not city code.
Yeah.
City code looks for city violations of city code. So if something has the wrong size font, if their hours are, all of those things, those are city code. But this is specifically building code. As far as helping you learn how to do it, come in on the 16th and Natasha will.
Yeah, and if you still feel that the technology is not something that you can, get comfortable with, then, like Anna said, we will accept your paper documents. We have to send them to a scanning vendor and it takes a little bit more time. So that's why people don't always use that option, but that is available to you.
Okay, so I can do this one right now, or the one that I have, and then, so I don't have to wait 2 weeks to process this permit here?
After this meeting.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Not right now.
So right now, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And this is normally done at our North Beach office by appointment. So you're here right now, we'll help you at the end of this meeting, but right now,
Fantastic.
let's have the meeting.
Sure.
And anyone on the call? I don't see hands up.
So let's, nobody has raised their hands, but so now we're gonna take,
We're gonna start picking up people.
No, so I told them that we would do them first since they're here, and then anybody online, if you just use the raise icon. We will.
I see it. There's some,
Okay,
there's a
so here
raise.
we have, go ahead and unmute yourself and
we'd like to hear from you. So Ira, I think you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Ira Giller.
Hi, Ira.
Yes, we can hear
I'm an
you.
architect and a general contractor, and I want to take advantage of this opportunity to convey several random thoughts on what I think you can do for some improvements. First of all, inspections, when we call them in and we're number 7 on the list or we're number 12 on the list, if the inspectors would follow the sequence, I don't have to sit at a job all day or have my superintendent wait all day for the inspection. If I know the inspection is number 12, he can be doing other things that morning. So, but what we find too often is that the inspections are bounced around, jumped around, so they're not followed in sequence.
No, what's happening with that, Ira, if I can interrupt a second, and you're correct, is what we found was that the inspectors were laying out their route and were not syncing it properly with the computer. So they left the original assignment, which wasn't ordered, and then they're following them actually 1, 2, 3, 4. However, you're seeing them and it looks like they're running around all over the place. And so that is something that we did do a training internally. If you find that, so we did a training, I think it was like 2 weeks ago on this, because we found that there was a disconnect. We have a lot of new staff and there was a disconnect in how they needed to finish it up. And so we did do a training on that and had a follow-up. And if you find something that you see is happening, let us know, email us so that we can then make sure, because then someone needs more training. It's not that there may be a situation where someone is pulled to a different direction suddenly because of an emergency, but that whole thing where it's just looks like they're wandering around like a top shouldn't be happening. sorry, your second point, I didn't
And
mean to
if-
interrupt.
And perhaps they can build into the technology that if there's a scheduled change due to an emergency, there's some way of having that posted in the computer so that as everybody's waiting, they know why the delay is instead of getting angry.
We brought that up to our vendor, and it's on our wish list.
Good. Another thing that would be helpful is to have all of the cell numbers for the inspectors. So
No,
that,
sorry,
so that-
Ira, that one, I know you want it, but I want the inspectors driving and paying attention to driving. Because they're driving on Miami Beach. I don't want them answering phone calls when they should be driving. I don't want, so the inspectors' phone numbers are not up and available. You can contact the chief and the chief can contact them, but I do not want everybody contacting the inspectors because the inspectors really have a big duty and a big safety concern that I don't want them answering a lot of calls.
I can appreciate that. As long as there's another methodology, if you say it's through the chiefs, then we can call the chief and they can reach out to them. And I guess part of it really stems from this bouncing around. So if they follow sequences, it's probably a lot less necessary to communicate.
Yeah, and we're
What-
working on that. So let me know if you see something that looks funny. Let me know, let Natasha know so that we can do more training.
Yeah, there's also times where there's connectivity issues on the field and
Right, and so sometimes in the field, what'll happen is you'll see they do inspection 1 and 2. This is when they're doing them sequentially, and you don't see anything, and then suddenly they enter 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 at the same time. And it's because they're somewhere where it's not connecting. Sometimes they'll do 1 and 2, and they've actually done 3, 4, and 5 and not had connectivity and not noticed because it doesn't inform the inspector. And when they do 6, 6 goes through, so it looks like they did 1, 2, 6. They're actually going in order. It may not always be working that way. That's another thing we're working on to see to get them. I know when I did inspections, I had a personal hotspot, but it was yet another thing you end up having to carry.
Right. Well, it's certainly something that needs to be worked on. Last thing with inspections, real quick. Sometimes a morning inspection versus an afternoon inspection can mean the difference between a day of work progress or no progress. Is there any way to, when we put in the requests with the additional information, to say morning inspection or afternoon inspection and hopefully get some positive response to that?
You can request it. It doesn't mean we can necessarily provide it. Because
Okay.
when they're laying out the route, they're doing it in a certain order of how they're, like, depending on where they're starting. So they can try to accommodate. You can put, please try for AM, but that doesn't mean they'll guarantee an AM or please try for PM. But again, I cannot guarantee an AM or a PM inspection.
Yeah, I don't think we're looking necessarily for an absolute guarantee, but at least some sensitivity to it as they're putting their schedules together.
Yeah, if you include that in your notes on the inspection notes, I think they see that when they're scheduling it. And they can, they can try for that.
they're also looking at.
They're also looking at geographic and how they're,
And
where they're,
ordering it on.
and ordering. So some of our inspectors will sometimes have over 20 inspections in a day. And then they may not be able to, you wanted a PM and somebody else wants an AM near the same location. One of you is gonna be disappointed.
Right.
It's
So what
like,
I normally tell people is just by looking at the order of your inspections, if you're number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to be in the morning time. If you start seeing that inspector had 20 inspections and then you're 10, 11, 12, and anything after that, then you're going to be in the afternoon time. So you can kind of range yourself around that, if that's of any help.
yeah,
Well,
part of,
as long as they're following the sequence, you're right. It is, and that's where the bugaboo comes in. But I think you're aware of it, and hopefully we'll see some improvements. One other suggestion, you made a comment a few minutes ago about I think it was in processing the plans. No longer do you had to change your policy. You dropped this, you dropped that. You're getting better, but I think there's room for improvement in notifying the architects and the engineers and contractors and runners, when you make changes in policy, it's too often I'm finding myself discovering, oh, they made a change. How was I supposed to know that?
We send out, whenever we have a policy change, we send out emails. And we had one of these meetings in November, and one of the feedbacks at that meeting was, because we were sending out the emails, but they all had the same title. And
Right.
it ended up in a lot of people's junk box. So someone told us on the heading, put what it's about. So we're using the heading to give you on the subject line, we're trying to give you the subject line so that if it says changes to window policies or Florida laws, or there was one we sent recently that had to do with, which does not affect any of the buildings on Miami Beach, but I didn't want to just keep the information. So there's this requirement that the county is now enforcing. It's been in the Florida Building Code, and it has to do with buildings that have structural glazing and the requirement of every 5 years having the structural glazing looked at. So we, because most of our stuff is condos and we have less office buildings, we have less of a chance of it being something, good afternoon, less of a chance of it being something where you're looking and it's a, I lost my train of thought. Where.
Yeah, I picked up on that very one.
So
but I
we sent that
appreciate-
one out
Yeah.
because we wanted to make sure that people knew it doesn't affect any of the buildings on Miami Beach. We've already looked at them. Any of the current buildings, but it's a rule that will change going forward. And it may change in your case, maybe you do something in city of Miami where it is affected. And so you know what that rule is. So we have been, for the past, I think like 4 years, we've been doing a lot of constant contact emails. It's just from last November, we had one of these community meetings and we got the feedback of, hey, give us a subject line to help me know whether I want to read this one or not. And so we started doing that. Hopefully that helps people know what's coming out.
We
And
also have our policies and procedures on our website. So we have, it says standard operating procedures, and we keep that as updated as we possibly can. So that might be a good resource for you. But maybe we could create a page that says kind of like
latest, yeah.
procedures.
It's certainly a good resource, but if you change today, I don't know tomorrow until you send out a notice. I don't go reading the SOP
Well,
every week.
We don't usually do, so if there's a change, we send out the notice.
No.
The notice is never sent, and it's sent via email. It is never sent, hey, we're changing something tomorrow. So we usually kind of warn you, we don't come up and punch you, we tell you we're gonna hit you. So we'll tell you starting on, and we've been trying to make most of our changes starting on a 1st of the month so that you get it the month before or 2 months before, starting on this date. This will be, because those are policy changes and nobody likes to get something at the last minute. If it's something that you're unaware and we just made the change, we work with you. Because it's not like, and we've done that always. So whenever we have like new applications that have, an update to our permit application, it doesn't mean that we've taken any old application that's come in and not honored it. I still get requests for extensions for TCOs that have my predecessor's name on it, even though I've been in this position for 6 years. I just scratch it off, put my name and sign it. So even though there is a change, it doesn't, and we've updated our forms, it doesn't mean that we will not use an older form in the case of an emergency. But we update our forms for a reason, and we ask that you try to use the most current ones on that.
Yvonne, did you have something on that same?
I do actually. I have 2 follow-ups for each of my questions. So with regards to this and the forms and the changes, is there somewhere on the website that just maybe on the homepage for building that just outlines recent changes.
Well, so that's what I just
And
mentioned.
those
Maybe that might be
emails
helpful.
can just be linked, and that way it's ongoing, and you'll just see like the last attention.
Yeah,
We can do that.
yeah, we can do that.
The second thing was with regards to the inspections, I know you mentioned that, sometimes they're here in the office and they'll receive something and be able to approve that sixth or seventh inspection is out of order. That they have the ability to update it, but they a lot of times don't.
Well,
I was just
to
thinking,
reorder the inspection, this is, everything's kind of fun. So in order to, order your inspections, you go put it in, you say, this is inspection number 1, and then you hit save, and then you go, this is inspection number 2, and you hit save. That little process takes a little bit of time. So if you suddenly give me a form that's inspection number 8, I may just put that in, enter the result and hit save, and that one may be one of those random ones that's done out of order. If I have to reorder the inspection thing, it may take the inspector another half hour before he goes out. And it's the difference of him finishing his route or having carryover.
what I was gonna suggest is, I don't know if the system can do this, but. Keep the order that's there, but after every completed inspection, just take it to the bottom of the list and then all the numbers move up. That way, the first inspection is the next inspection, not the first inspection for the day.
Look into it. I don't know if we can do that, but we can, that's.
We can ask.
Just a
Yeah.
thought.
We can ask. It's, I mean, yeah, I know that it goes changing in color and you get like a check mark as it's completed. So there's that. I don't know that it's going to reorder the thing. We can always ask.
And we had this conversation actually yesterday with the software developers, because what's happening is if they reorder it on the field,
No, it would have to be an
It's not-
automated system thing.
well, if they're reordering it on the field, it's not updating on the inspection round. So that's very,
For the inspected.
right.
Oh,
Right, he's out on the field, he has his iPad there, and he needs to reorder it for some, whatever reason. It's not,
It doesn't, you can't reorder it from remote. You can only reorder it inside the office.
but that's him manually reordering. No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it automatically, the system would
so
adjust.
you
That way
move
it would,
everything up to the top.
it would address Ira's issue with.
No,
People just get frustrated when they're like number 5, but they see number 11 and 12 and 15 were already taken care of.
right.
It's a mental thing, and so.
No, and I,
The system could do it automatically.
yeah, that would be wonderful, but I don't know that that's a thing, but we can always look and see if that could become a thing.
Let's see if,
Oh, do you have one more, Aaron?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I
Okay.
see some other hands are up as well, so I don't want to hog the time. This is an old issue. I've discussed it with Anna in the past. When we come in for resubmission of plans for review, and the corrections are only, say, structural or plumbing, or just building department issues, the plans going to planning and going to the fire department, and it doesn't affect any of their work, creates inordinate delays in moving a permit application through.
Those are policies that those departments have made and requested that we honor. So I understand what you're saying, but it is a policy decision that both planning and fire have asked to be on every review every time.
That's.
Maybe it's time to rethink that policy through those other departments. I don't know how you get a group together to bring that pressure to do so, but I've
We
talked
have
with both
meetings,
departments.
we have meetings with the other departments. We'll bring this up. And the concern on this, you're right, it may be that structural isn't a big deal. Because I don't think it affects the other departments, but mechanical could be. And sometimes structural may add something to the exterior of the building that may affect, so I know that they've asked for this, and this has been something that's been happening here since it predates me. So,
Yeah.
I'll definitely bring it up and see if they are amenable to a change.
Maybe there's a way of the applicant stating with the resubmission that this has no impact on planning or fire, and at least they're certifying it or taking responsibility for that. and could shortcut it. I know that the biggest problem currently is
We
getting,
did talk
planning.
about that today, actually, Ira, so I think that might be a solution. We can definitely talk to them about that. Go ahead, sorry.
all right, no, that was it. I know I've talked about it with Tom and with Juan, and everybody says it's the other one, but there's got to be a way of shortcutting that. If you got a small permit and it's a minor rework, it shouldn't take weeks to have to go through not only the building department, but through the other departments as well. Time is money on our side of the table, and it's something that's not always appreciated, but if you got a big project and you're paying a mortgage and you're paying a construction loan, every day is thousands of dollars in interest. So making it go faster and smoother is in the interest of the big projects. And the little projects, the homeowners just get totally frustrated. Why does it take 6 months to get a building permit?
I understand, and having been on that side of the table for more of the time than I've been on this side of the table, I can appreciate it. And so we do try to, work on that. We'll look and see, what, if having some sort of a statement, we had talked about this, especially on the revisions today. We had a meeting, just the building department people, and to look at different things and on the revisions, that was something we had discussed, kind of putting some sort of disclaimer type language on there as on a, going back to what used to be before, which was every time you submitted, you bring in the form asking who to see it and you'd sign off on it. And so, yeah, the
Right.
routing sheet or something like that, to reintroduce something like that to make it, I think, more helpful to get the stuff moving and not routing it to everybody.
That would be good. Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
No, I'm here to listen and also just to make contact. Our firm is a member of the chamber, if we got noticed. And
Yeah, I noticed the chamber because I wanted them to know and spread the word, because I hoped we get, we had a meeting in November, and not that it was not well attended, but we really didn't get a whole lot of feedback. So you want to have the feedback meeting to get the feedback. And that's the whole purpose.
I just wonder if we could exchange contact information.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, who to go to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take, I'm sorry.
You're gonna take her with some hands up.
Yes.
So Sue, you're next. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Sue.
Sue Siriani.
Yes, it's Sue Siriani from SNS Consulting. I have some comments that are mostly about how CSS works.
Okay.
Which I don't know if that's just going to be added to a wish list, because maybe if it was possible, they would have done it already, but
Maybe there's stuff we haven't considered and you tell us and we think, oh, yeah, we could do that. So there's nothing's off the table.
okay, thanks.
Even the wish list items where we go to the vendor, it's on the table. It may be on a further down the road table. Go ahead.
Okay, the first one is when I have to search for a master permit number. My projects usually have a lot of permits, sub permits, shop drawings, a lot. It could be hundreds. You can never find the master permit. It takes a long time to scroll through the pages to see where the master permit's going to come up. It seems like if there was a way to have the master permit come up first and then all the sub permits underneath it, where you didn't have to scroll through 100 permits to try to find it, would be great.
But Sue, this is within your dashboard, like when you're in View My Permits in your
What?
own dashboard?
No, I use the search engine and put in the permit number.
Have you tried the dashboard where it's like just the ones that you're associated with?
Yeah, it is the projects that I'm associated with, so the master permit that I pulled, but then when I have to go to it to make a payment or something further on in the project, it could be like number 23 in the list of 100 permits that were pulled instead of number 1. It's just, I mean, that's just a little thing. It's not a big deal, but it's,
No, and that might be something where we can see if there's a way to give the master permit that has the sub permit some sort of priority order in the way it's listed. I don't know. We can always
We
try
can check,
it.
but there's also numerous filtering tools in the dashboard and sorting orders. So, I mean, I'd like the opportunity to show that to you, Sue, to see if that kind of addresses what you're looking for. If not, we can definitely take it to the software developers and see if what we can do there.
okay, thanks, Natasha. I'll take you up on that. Can always learn something, maybe I don't know. Okay, the second one is the return enter button. There's so many times I have to, whether I'm working on my laptop or I have to just be taking my cursor from the left side to the right side, to up to down, like if we're a return button to hit enter or something would just make it so much easier, like so many times. That's just another suggestion.
Sue, what, I'm not clear on which one you're referring to when you say the return enter button.
Like let's say if you have like when you go to hit submit, or you want to say, okay, this address is a good address, and you have to click it, or you have to, you know what, that's something I should probably take some screenshots and I'll show you what I'm referring to later. I'll do that. Okay.
And I always appreciate all the screenshots and you send me on things that are going on.
I appreciate that. Okay,
You help us identify a lot of the glitches that happen.
Yeah, that really is helpful. If you run into something weird and you can take a strict screenshot and send it to us, then it's easier for us. If it's a bug that's developed in the software, it's easier for us to send it to IT to have it corrected. If it's something that we need to fix because we developed it wrong, it's something we need to know. Sometimes there's things that come from the vendor where we've had these weird glitches show up suddenly, and we found out really from the feedback because we're not applying for permits every day. So feedback really does help us. Thank you.
Good. Another thing that we used to have, when we would upload files, it would show the date that we uploaded them. And that was actually really helpful to me to see, okay, did I upload this? Yeah, I uploaded it yesterday, but for some reason that got taken away. So the ability to see the dates files were uploaded.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, Sue. Yeah, we'll take that back to the software development.
Okay.
Yeah, because we can see it on our side when it was uploaded, but I could see where it would be useful for you to know, did that work? Yes or no? And so it would be helpful.
Thanks. I have a couple more. So we good? We can keep going. You just changed something with the addresses when you go to put in an address, and now it shows a map and it shows all these things. It's fancy, it's pretty, but it seems like it's going to crash at any second when I use it if the screen flashes. And before, like, I would put in an address and it would come right up. Now it goes through addresses that it just doesn't seem to be an improvement.
You know what we could probably do is see if there's a way to turn that button off.
There it is.
So if there's a way to turn that button off, then you can turn that button off for you, so that some people may want the map, but some people may not want the map, and that would give them the option.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way for
For
the
them.
individual. No, there's a way for us on the back end.
Yeah, but if we turn it on, we turn it off for everybody,
Right.
and somebody may actually like the map. And like to go find, I don't remember the address, let me find it on, I don't know. I don't know, I'm not sure why the map, but we'll see if there's a way to add something so that on your side, you can choose the preference, like how that you do in other things. You choose your screen preference and you say, no, I don't want the map. And then you can just do the address and that it'll be quicker.
Okay, well, there's always Property Appraiser's website for the maps
Yeah,
for everyone.
I agree.
And that one's pretty stable too, and you can click on neighboring folio numbers and get the information for that, so that property appraiser's website's good. Okay, I'm trying to just rush through these. You were talking about using a routing sheet again, but I know you're really familiar with how Dade County's system works, but if you can make it so you could click on the disciplines that you want within CSS, instead of having to upload a paper or a routing sheet, maybe that's another option to consider.
We had talked about that actually this morning, and then I don't know if that would be an option the first time through. It may not be an option alternate times, and that's why we spoke about that. We still haven't talked to IT about this and how it's doable. So that routing sheet idea may be a virtual routing sheet. It may be a physical one. It may be some sort of fillable form online and that you click, and then you insert it. But we just had that idea this morning and we haven't fully fleshed it out yet. We need to talk to IT and see what's available and what we can do easily. And then if not, what workarounds we work with to get that same experience for somebody.
Okay. And one last one then, shop drawings. I know that they were considered, well, they've changed how they've been processed over the years. They used to be free, but is there a way you could consider having an option for a shop drawing upload, like revisions, where you don't have to get an application number?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like a direct application?
Like a direct application on the shop drawings. That's a good idea. I like that idea. And I think it's something that definitely we can work to develop. I like that idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for hearing me out.
Thanks for talking.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, our next hand is Luis Cavalcanti. Please unmute.
Oh, yes, thank you. I wanted to bring up a frustration that I have with the code enforcement process part of the building department, and I'm not sure if this is the right forum.
Is it a building code compliance?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
It's as right a forum as any.
okay. All right. So I wanted to ask what are the steps, the procedures, because I've actually looked up in the last 5 years the standard operating procedures for the code enforcement of a violation, and have been to numerous meetings, both online, in person, special masters for a code issue that has been affecting my property and my family for, my gosh, really over 5 years, and has been on the radar screen of the building department's code enforcement department at least for the last 3+ years. And my feeling is what we've had is an over lenient position on the part of the city, of the building department, of code enforcement, of the special magistrates, to allow somebody who has a code issue, a violation, to go unanswered. And the city has been more than willing to accept any and all excuses, even outright lies from this individual in particular, to let him off the hook, to give him another continuance, to give him, and so to give you an idea, we're March of 2023. I attended when this issue finally got in front of a special master, January 13th of 2022. There were, I think, 4 continuances given to this individual, and the issue is still not solved. It's a leak issue on a bathtub that was installed by a handyman, and has leaked into my apartment for 5 years. And I'm wondering, what is the process to enforce the code so that affected parties are not continually just waiting for something to happen, waiting for the code to be enforced, waiting for resolution. In my case, waiting to seal the ceiling on my master bathroom so it's fully usable again.
So I'll look into that specific case. I can tell you that enforcement is kind of a weird knife that you have to walk. So you want to get people to be compliant. And so that's your first point of enforcement isn't just to yield the hammer, it's to actually get people to just follow the rules. Unfortunately, it's kind of like speeding. Some people get the ticket and they pay it and they stop and they go, I'll be more careful from now on. Other people get the ticket and they throw it in their glove compartment and they continue to gather tickets. And it's very difficult to enforce code with the people that are throwing it in their glove box and just keep driving recklessly. And so the special magistrate offering a continuance, they are not, the special magistrate is an independent magistrate.
Right.
So if they continue the case, there's little that we can do for that. But send me an email and I'll follow up and see what's going on in this case and where we are, what steps we have taken, and to make sure that there's something we can do going forward. On extreme cases, we have evacuated the unit. That's the causing unit, and we've done it that way. But it's really like, it's something you don't want to pull out on a regular basis. But email me. My email's Anna, and my last name is Salgueiro. I always say the hard part spelling my name right. It's ANA and then S like in Sam, ALGUEIRO at miamibeachfl.gov.
Okay.
And so you can email me, and if you can't remember this later, send it to building admin and she'll give it to me.
We've actually I've sent emails. You've responded and channeled to the proper folks that would enact some measures. In this case, we're very much dealing with the individual who gets the ticket and throws it in the glove compartment and continues to accrue tickets. It happens to be somebody who has a property under a trust with a reverse mortgage that's so big they will never spend any money on this property because he's just using it until some shoe falls and he can no longer use it. And so, at that point, and I've tried to have that conversation with the city. I think if I will send you an email, and if you look into, I don't know if you have access to the files that the special magistrate has, but I can certainly, if you don't, I certainly.
I kind of do, I just don't always understand the language.
Yep.
But I can always talk to Steve Rothstein. He is our legal counsel for the building department, and
Yep.
he can explain it to me if I don't understand it.
Yep. This actually are submissions that I've given to the special magistrate, sent to the building department, to code enforcement over the course of the last 2 years, and trying to get this 2-3 years trying to get this resolved. And so I've provided documentation on when this tub was installed and how, and everything that has happened, since then that has caused damage and bad things in our family. We literally we moved out of our apartment for 9 months to renovate. And granted, let me preface that it was on account of a larger roof leak. But once that leak came down, what they found was an incredible amount of mold, and that didn't just happen overnight. Fortunately, the same insurance company had the other leaks as well, and they chose to just dry things out quickly and patch them up. But clearly, the actions of this individual and our inability to get this dealt with, it has just caused this inordinate amount of pain. And there's really, I don't see a solution in sight. I got the city to start enforcing and giving the penalties on this unit. So it is accruing a penalty of $200 a day for not having complied by November 30th of 2022, and I thank you for that. That said, it's those $200 a day are tickets going into the glove compartment. He'll never pay it. And the fact that the property is under a trust, I don't know if that could ever be enforceable. So if there is a path to making the unit uninhabitable, unless the individual cures the situation, I would love for us to be able to talk and streamline that.
That would be something, that's a whole other thing. That's a separate process. And that's why email me, because you have a very specific case and we're trying to get a big broad brush to see what we can fix. I'll help you offline. I thank you for your comment, but I think we need to move on. And I don't need to cut you off. Email me and I'll spend time on that. Okay?
I absolutely will. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's get to Menzel Felling, who's had his hands up for some time. Menzel, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Yes, hi. How are you, Anna? I think I see Steve Miner there and I can't really see everyone else. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Amanda.
How are you guys?
Amen.
I was trying to get into to be at the meeting, but I had to join virtually. Hopefully the noise in the background, you can hear me well, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it brief. To be honest, I'm not an architect and I don't really deal with the permitting process. I can just tell you from being a real estate agent that sells a lot of houses and deals with a lot of clients, this is very important what you're doing, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to try to improve this process. It's a constant frustration of my clients and me personally. I have a project, as some of you know, in the city for myself that's been in the city since June for an extension of my house. No matter the situation, it shouldn't be taking this long to be able to get a permit to do some work to my house. And this is something I hear nonstop. I have a client that built a brand new house waiting for a right of way for a sidewalk in order to finish his gate. It's just, this whole process needs to be improved. I'm from, every time we submit something, it takes another 3 weeks or potentially 2 weeks to get feedback or to get a response back from the reviewer. And the constant complaint that my architect has told me is that the reviewers do not read the comments. They don't look at the plans, extensively. They'll send back their comments and then it has to go through the whole process again. And they have to do double the work. And there's a lot of money that the city's not getting. I'm losing as a consumer, and there's no benefit really. There's no winner. And
I agree. I think that when you have a review, if the architect feels that the reviewer did not provide a complete review, the first thing they should do is contact the supervisor. If the supervisor is not responsive, contact Mashir. If the Mashir is not responsive, contact me. So let's try to see how we can, the only way if, and this happens because we have human beings doing something. So can somebody miss something on a review? I can tell you, yes, I've missed things on reviews. I did reviews for 11 years and sometimes I miss something. Didn't do it on purpose, just missed something. And I get a phone call from someone or an email telling me, hey, you missed this and it's over there. If we're still under review, they can go back and adjust that review. So the comments
Right.
are available, and they can look them up in real time. But if they see something, because I know I used to get it when I was at the county, I get people going, you just disapproved this, and I go, it was 5 minutes ago. It's like, are they standing there waiting for me to hit the button? And they would contact me and ask me or tell me, you missed this on this page. And I would look to see, sometimes I had missed it, sometimes they had, what they thought was the correct answer wasn't the complete answer. And so that's why it's important to, and we have on all of our, every time, and we started this, I think October we started this, every time you get your review cycle done, when it comes back, it also comes back with how to make an appointment. Each reviewer has their email and their phone number on there and should be responsive. If for some reason they're not, they have their supervisor's name on there and their email, so that if you're seeing something, you know, waiting quietly isn't gonna fix it. It's like, let us know, because when we know, we can fix something. When we hear it later in this anecdotal way of it happens without an actual case, I can't follow up on the case to see how it happened.
Right.
Do we need to train someone, or where's the holdup?
Right, so I resubmitted again. You reached out to the reviewer and answered a bunch of questions and pointed out looking for our interview. We resubmitted on Monday. I sent an email also trying to expedite the process, given that it's been 9 months that I'm trying to get my permits. So let's see when this comes back. But this is just a personal experience that I'm going through, and I think the feedback is important. One
No,
more thing.
I agree. I'm not belittling the feedback. I do think the feedback is always important. The only
Right.
way we can.
I agree. I didn't feel that way at all. So I'm on the same page as you. One more thing that I brought up to the city in the past is the whole I forget the name of the department, but the department that takes care of the trees and the protection around the trees. My house has had trees protected for 4 months now because I thought I was getting my permit, and it's honestly an eyesore, and I'm embarrassed that I have these tree protections around my trees. I suggested fire a tree survey before the project and a tree survey after the project, and if the trees aren't there, there's penalties unless there was reasons, or I don't know the exact how to work through it. But I think the fact that we have to put, and by the way, it's also not, it's individual for each project. So I've driven by and I see no tree protections on there. So I don't think it's case by case from what I'm seeing. And I think also just to have these tree protections around the trees in a residential neighborhood like that is just ugly and not necessary, and not something the city should be requiring. I think there needs to be a real review of that requirement.
I heard you when you mentioned this in my office. And actually, I've been driving around, and when I go to visit my sister in Coral Gables, they have the same things. And so I've seen it because her next door neighbor is doing a construction project, and they have that same, the wood frame with the orange safety netting around it. So I hear your concern. We'll share it with Urban Forestry. But it's not something that I can assist with, other than to share it with someone.
I think a simple solution would be a tree survey before that's required and a tree survey after, and a set of penalties unless there was a permission given to remove certain trees. My trees are in the right of the way. They're not even really close to where the construction is going. And I don't think any of the contractors that will work on my site want to damage their trucks or anything by hitting a tree.
I know. I saw the pictures. I understand your case. I can share it with Urban Forestry, but it's not something I can help you with. I can help you with the review part. That I can look at.
We've discussed this before, but I'm sending another email right now to Urban Forestry.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We don't have any more hands up online. We do have Commissioner Minor here. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you all, thank you for doing it, thank you for everybody who participated. It is an issue we hear a lot from, so I'm glad that you are receptive to hearing what we could potentially do better. I know when people come to me or they reach out to you, you're very responsive. That I do know. I think some of the issues in the process that we keep hearing about, and a couple of us on the commission have items. And really, I guess what I hear a lot is if there's something we can do, if you need something to improve the computer program, or I heard you, I was listening on Zoom a little bit before I actually got here, but you're talking about the turnover. If there's something that we can do budgeting wise, I think that's something our commission would be amenable to, because we do hear the feedback and the complaints and the frustration from people as they're trying to get their processes. So please let us know, whether it be computer software, personnel. I think you'd hear a commission that would be willing to do that.
No, and we have been, as you know, because that was an item that was brought up from commission. I don't know anymore if it's commission or committee, but it was brought up. So, the IT has been looking at the permitting software and did an RFQ to see different choices and different things that were available. We've been looking also at availability. In the meantime, we're also looking at how we can fix what we have, because understanding that even if we decide to go with, if we look at different options and we decide to go with a different option, that option doesn't sprout. It's an 18-month process between the first it has to get approved to do this kind of a purchase. And then once it's approved, it's an 18-month process to change from one system to another. That being said, there's things we can do with what we have now, and part of it is we're working on, which is going to be a cleaning up of the contacts. And so we have, and it happened like 2 weeks ago where Gvon has like 52 contacts because of his company. And so he asked to be added to the permit, and I went by his email because that's how I do it. Only it's not his email that he needed to be added by. So I don't know that because he came to me, he didn't go to the permit counter. They know that. They do it every day. I don't do it every day. I did it on this one project, and then I got a bunch of emails on, oh, you added the wrong one. You should add this one. And it's like, so we're trying to do a cleanup of the contacts because of the volume of contacts that are on there. That's one of the things that might be slowing things down. We've done a cleanup of the inspections. There was a lot of dangling inspections. We've gotten those all cleaned up so that that's working a little bit better, because as the system, the more it tries to drag with it, it's like kind of like if I said, let's go on vacation and I don't tell you what kind of clothes to bring, and you have to bring your entire closet. So the system works that way. It's bringing everything. And then you go, oh, we're going swimming. And it's like, oh, I could have brought only this clothes. So we're trying to clean out the closet so that it isn't dragging such a heavy closet with it, which we're going to need if we go to do a conversion anyways. And so Frank has been the one spearheading the portion on the permitting, on the software for permitting and looking at it.
And I think we also are looking into and hoping to invest some more in maybe some user-friendly interfaces that can guide people through the processes a little bit better, kind of direct you more into what kind of permit you need by selecting a few options, right? Like trying to get to know more of what the scope of your project is so that you know the right permit type that you need. That's also often.
Great. It's interesting because you do hear the frustration from people. It's just there's something inherent about it. And also what I get concerned, there's certain people that are going to always do the right thing and get the permit. I get concerned with individuals who hear, oh, it's so hard, and then they just forego it, which obviously would be bad. And I know this was mentioned before. I think Ira Giller mentioned it before, but I've heard this also, and actually heard it yesterday from a resident that they've had to spend an inordinate amount of time waiting. They're put on a list, but sometimes they wait 4, 6, 8 hours Just wondering if this seems to be a way to say, listen, we'll be there within the hour instead of somebody literally taking off days.
So we talked about that, about it having a way to notify, hey, you're gonna be, you're 3 inspections away, or you're, right now, we don't have that, but we have looked into something like that. Because what we can't tell you is, we'll be there at 10 a.m. But what we could tell you is, hey, in 3 inspections, you should be coming up. And so that's what
A
we've,
tighter window than.
a tighter window.
So we're exploring other software that could do things like that as well.
We were looking at that, we're always looking for that, because that isn't just been a complaint here, that was a complaint when I was at the county, that's always been a complaint, is like, well, I gotta sit there all day long waiting for the inspector. And one of the challenges here is one of the challenges sometimes can be that we, I got lost.
Talking about the tighter windows.
The tighter windows. One of the challenges with that is that we can't guarantee AM and PM, and we can't, things come up during the day sometimes that kind of change things, and you don't want to tie something so tight that you can't untie it. We have, because of different things with newer staff, we've had to work to train the newer staff to make sure that they do the syncing in the office. Sometimes we have staff that we get from a professional vendor. And so that staff comes in, and while they know the building code and they know the thing and they're ready to go, they don't necessarily know the software. And so sometimes, like initially, we had a gentleman that came to work for us, great guy, but not really computer savvy. So we were giving him a list of the inspections on paper for him to go out and do them in order. And so he was doing them in order, he just wasn't resulting them because he needed somebody to help him enter the results until we fully trained him. But because he was a little bit, it was more like my style. So it took him more than a week or two to figure out how to do this, because it wasn't something instinctual to him. You give a 3-year-old this and they can get you anywhere. You give it to me and I can get you to 3 places. So it was a little bit, we have an aging workforce in construction, because of the requirements. There's something going up at the county level that will change Chapter 8 of the county law, which will change the requirements of who we can hire. It won't downgrade it. It'll just make it someone who, right now, the person has to be licensed and they have to have held that license for 5 years. We have a gentleman that we hired and he is licensed. He's passed his exams and he's been working in the construction industry for 20 years, but he hasn't been licensed for 5 years.
In Miami-Dade County.
In Miami-Dade County. So once that law passes, we can have him be full-time as an inspector. In the meantime, we've trained him, we've showed him the computer software, we're training him with violations, he's understanding the software better so that we can prep him, because he's a good employee, he has the background, he's got all the certifications and the certificates, and it's something we always look for. Somebody else has their hand up. I see a hand.
So Irela Ferrer, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I have a quick question. Is it possible to extend automatically the expiration date of permits once extended, either via an inspection being approved or by extending it precisely?
Well,
I have
by
a project that I have.
An approved inspection will automatically extend a permit for 180 days. If you're specifically talking about the private provider, They would
No,
need to-
no, Anna,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not asking only for the private provider. I'm asking about all the projects that I have for other friends of mine who live in the city. I'm asking for the permit expiration date that is shown in the permit card as well as in the work permit, the ones that we have to place in the visible side of the project. And then I have been asked also if that can be extended. So you have a permit card that shows expiration date 10/22/22, and an inspector goes by and sees that permit card being installed there. I say, well, this permit is expired, so I don't know if at that time the inspector will actually look up in the system if he have any means to do that. So my question again is it possible, like, for example, City of Coral Gables does that. If you have a permit that is extended by an inspection approved, an
So
approved
our
inspection being
permit- our
resulted,
permit
if that can be
card-
done.
Our permit card does not have the expiration date on it. Our work permit does.
Yes,
So
that's true.
on the system shows that the permit is active. We're not issuing new permit cards on a regular basis every time someone requests an inspection.
That's okay. I just wanted to know,
After
you said
we-
you want
we
the
would have to
suggestions,
create
so,
the permit cards,
Not even permit, the work permit.
we would have to.
yeah, the work permit, I understand, I'm
Permit
sorry.
cards every time. The information is on the system and it should not be, it's in CSS. And if an inspector questions it, he better know how to look it up on his thing because it's there. So let me know of a specific case where that's a problem because the work permit is not what the permit card. The permit card is what's on site and the permit card does not have the expiration date because it's a sliding date. It's 180 days from when it was
Every
issued.
time.
Every approved inspection will extend it. So does every approved inspection need a new permit card? That would be messy and it would make it difficult then to go back and look and see which inspections, because the whole reason for having a card back in the day used to be the inspector signed off on the card. And if something happened, someone had a card with all the signatures on it. This way, if we keep printing out new cards, it kind of makes a bigger mess.
Thank you for that explanation, but that's not what's really my point. I understand that all the inspections results are done in the system. So thank God we don't have to have that card, additional card for all the inspectors to sign in. As I said, the City of Coral Gables, for example, have that capability and they use the same product from Tyler. So we're just also asking to see if there is another thing that can be looked into it. So
You could add
at
it,
least-
I just think it's additional paperwork we're creating rather than something that really changes the function of the system.
it's your
We
call,
can-
whatever you say. I have another question, but maybe is since the second question is related to private provider, maybe I think I'll send you an email that probably be better because it might not be an interesting information for the rest of the guests.
I'm sure everybody else has jobs that have private providers, so it may be interesting to everybody because.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you
have-
agree with me. So my other question is, since we have now the master permit and also the PP permit type associated with that master permit, whenever we have to now do every month, we have to upload all the information, all the inspection reports done by private providers in each of the disciplines that are related to that master permit. So initially, it was said that whenever we upload that and request that inspection under the PP permit type, the inspectors may or not may go to the site. So number one is it's the same about inspection. Since this is another inspection, is there any way to know if this first inspector will actually visit the site? And if indeed the inspector needs to go, if there is a time frame for the contractor or the private provider, stay or wait for the inspector in case that something is needed. That's number one. And number two, since some of these inspections have to be provided under the PP permit type, but at the same time has to be satisfied under the master permit, if there is any way that once the private provider inspection is partially passed under the P permit type, if the same inspection can be resulted under the master permit, given that the private provider requested it the same day as the PP inspection.
Okay, those are a lot of questions, but yes. So let me break it down. The private provider has a sub permit that's only for them to put their documentation, to keep it all in one place. The documents that are provided, that are uploaded up there, should have a digital signature and seal, and those will extend the master permit. Will we go back and then result the framing if the framing had a partial pass? No, because that's not the way the private provider thing works. So the private provider, that's why there's the separate permit, to keep those inspections separately. We will extend the master permit based on the uploaded digitally signed and sealed logs that on the PP
So the master and everything, every sub associated will all get extended.
will all get extended, but.
No,
it will-
thank you. I understand that, but for example, I want to give you a precise example so you can actually relate to that if you need to. I had a roofing inspector inspection under the PP permit type yesterday. And then for today, we scheduled the inspection under the master permit. The GC and the inspector called me and they were confused. I said, but didn't I approve that yesterday? And I explained that, yes, he had approved that, partially approved under the PP permit type, but not under the master permit. So that was something that I think it might probably need additional clarification.
No, so I'm not sure who you're calling the inspection for. So we're gonna have to talk about this offline because I'm not understanding what you're saying. And I want to understand what you're saying because I think if you're doing roofing and roofing is a sub permit and you need to do an inspection to close off the roofing permit, the private provider would provide all of the documentation, could upload it in the system, and then could schedule roofing final on the roofing permit. So that is how that would work. If you have the master permit that's doing everything, and under that master permit, you have under the private provider portion done foundation. You don't need to call for final on foundation because once you get to either TCO or CO or final, you'll do all those inspections. It'll pass. There'll be the final inspection for building is the one you're calling. You don't have to call all the roughs. So the roughs are called, they're just log checks that'll be done. And then
Okay.
it'll be the final inspection.
Okay,
And
the one that.
may or may not go on site. Usually the inspector will notify you if they will be going on site, and it may not be the day you uploaded that. It might be 2 days later or something, and they'll let you know beforehand.
Okay.
Audit and then they will call and schedule.
Say that again? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
They may decide to do an audit. That's something that's allowed, or it may be.
I
that they
understand
just-
that,
log
Anna,
check.
thank you. But my question was precisely for a roofing permit. There is only one roofing permit. There is it's not a master permit with roofing as a sub permit. This is just a roofing, small house roofing permit. And that's the situation that I had this
You
morning.
would have to still call for final inspection on the roof.
I understand, but I cannot
You
call
have
the
to do
final
it in
inspection.
progress.
I cannot call the final inspection until the previous required inspections are resulted in the system. So that's why the inspector told me, oh, I already did approve that yesterday. And I explained that it was under the PP permit type and not on the master roofing
Okay, so
permit.
we'll talk to roofing about that to make sure that it doesn't stop up the final. What he needs to do is skip that inspection.
Oh,
Not
so that's
result-
what you want, perfect. So it had to be skipped, you say skip being resulted in the system or just keep it deleted in the system? I don't understand that.
Skipped.
Internally.
Internally, it's a choice we have internally. He'll skip it and then you'll call for final.
Okay, and the satisfaction of the notice of commencement, who can do that? Because that's another thing that needs to be satisfied in this permit.
Again, the notice of commencement is something that can be submitted under the paperwork for the private provider that it's been registered. It can also be submitted at any point and we can result it. And it
Yeah,
would be-
I did, but that was not resulted yet, so I wanted to know whom should I send it to in order to get that over with?
So you can send it to Mashir.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Anyone else? Any other questions, comments?
I just have one more.
We knew you'd come back.
It was regarding unassigned reviewers at the creation of the workflow. So I know that we were waiting for the chief to assign it. I don't know if that's still,
Yeah, and so,
I
well,
guess my question is, once the reviewer is assigned, does their timeline start at that point?
No.
Or it's retroactive?
No. The timeline starts when the workflow is open,
Right.
the clock is turned on. The clock doesn't turn on, if it takes us 3 days to assign it to somebody, that's not when their clock starts. The clock starts the second it comes in.
And if it's a resubmittal on an existing process, it will never not get assigned, right? Like they would.
Yeah, that would have, it'll go back to the same person as before unless they have retired.
Okay.
And then it'll still go back to that person and somebody has to change it. I know, because it doesn't know.
That was my best.
That wasn't a bad one. Anyone else online that has any questions, any comments? Thank you all for coming. We're gonna do this. We started the first one we did in November. We're doing these quarterly. And the idea is to look to see what we can fix, and to come back and hopefully then tackle new issues next time. I know the issue with the inspections and the change of, we had a first reviewer, we had a second reviewer, has always been an issue. And then they're like, can I always have the same inspector and can I always have the same reviewer? You can, although our inspectors are allowed to go on vacation or retire, and so are our reviewers. So we cannot guarantee it throughout the project. We try to keep the same reviewers to the same areas and the same inspectors to the same areas and the same reviewers to redo their plans. But occasionally, because of shifting, we have to shift it, but it's not something that we go for. We try to keep the same person always. Anything else? And Commissioner, we'll end with you. We'll let you talk.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback that you're willing to accept that. I understand that's not always the norm in a lot of municipalities. And I think you are trying. We're literally in contact every day, or my aide is, because it comes to us. And you are accessible and your team is accessible, which is great. I guess what we're trying to do is get through that process where it makes it, especially for people who are uninitiated in the process, and it takes a little more handholding, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get through that, and so whether it be software, whether it be certain assistance, I know we have an item going through commission about an ombudsman to try to deal with that. Anything we can do to help. So.
Yeah, and I think the ombudsman position would be something that has to be not from the building department. It needs to be something that's from city management level, because it needs to be somebody that can touch all the departments that are in permitting and can also look at the whole process and maybe not understand the laws of each and everything, but have some sort of understanding of what goes first and what goes next. Because we also have a lot of small businesses that are starting up that kind of get into that same sort of quagmire. And some of them may not even need a building permit. They may be taking over a vacant space that used to sell t-shirts and now they're going to sell pants. And they really don't need to come to us for that at all. But they still have a process that they have to do. And so it's kind of, I think it may be helpful to have a person or team that is someone that to go to for that is at a higher level. Because, for example, Mendy's complaint about the trees, he has mentioned it to me. I can mention it to urban forestry, but I'm coming colleague to colleague and going, here's a suggestion. And it's not the same as coming from city management, our boss. So there's different directions and different things that can happen that may make the change. And that's why I think the ombudsman would be best served not being inside the building department, but being something from city management, and then would have to have an understanding and can, have a crash course in what it is. And one of the things I was explaining to someone recently is the Florida Building Code used to be, the South Florida Building Code used to be a notebook about this wide and this tall. Then in 1996, it became the full height of full sheet of paper, and it became this wide. It's now an entire shelf in my office. So when they say, why is this complicated? This is why. It's become more complicated as they've tried to better define different portions of it. It used to be, this was the code and it had everything. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, everything was in here. Now the code is this big, and we have the National Electrical Code that doesn't include the Florida Fire Prevention Code, another little chunk about this wide, and it doesn't include the Planning Code, which is a living, breathing document that every time commission gets together has some sort of change made to it. And so it is a complicated process. We're trying to make it's complicated, not because the process is complicated, it's complicated because the codes are complicated. Ideally, we'll try to make the process more understandable. The code is, we can't simplify it. We can only simplify the process. And that's what we're hoping to do. We have been, since 2018, we've done monthly surveys. We've changed our survey thing, questions and our, and way we get it back different times, but we send out a monthly survey every month. And we all look at the surveys, and when we get feedback, we reach out to the different respondents to try to get, I want to better understand where you felt there was a problem, because everyone says it's time, and I get that, but without knowing where they felt its pain point on time, we don't know where to unravel it. And so we look for how to simplify something that's complicated. I compare this to going to the hospital sometimes. You go to the hospital, you're not a medical professional. People seem to talk to you like if you definitely know what they're talking about, and they're not using regular people words. And we have a tendency to do that. So our website, Natasha and the website team are not contractors, are not architects, and are not engineers. And we work to do that. And we've been trying to look at it, and we've gotten feedback from, we had a resident a few years ago that she ran her own permits, and she watched, and we had done online videos, and they were like an hour and a half long. And she goes, I watched those videos and it just takes forever. And so now we have 5-minute videos and 10-minute videos. We don't have these hour-long videos. We have step-by-step videos on our website. We have step-by-step, because we try to get the feedback, but it seems like the feedback, some of it is always the same, some of it is new. And so we want to do this so you can get what's new and what we can fix, because we can't do it. This is a huge team effort in permitting, because the building permit includes 6 other departments and at least 2 outside agencies on a regular permit. And so we try to make sure that we get you to something where the application isn't unpleasant and the thing, because, and I get it. I don't want to encourage someone to do work without a permit, because I think that becomes dangerous. You think it's not a big deal, but it can become a big deal if you do work without a permit. If everyone.
Certainly don't want that.
Right. No.
I hear it though.
I know, I hear it too, and I cringe when it's suggested. I want people, I would rather have the complaints come to us than have somebody do work without a permit and possibly endanger their neighbor, endanger their family. And so, you know, it's important to us that we make the permitting, something that isn't unpleasant, you know, but so that they come.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for coming, and
Thank you,
thank you for
everyone.
participating, sitting.
And all the residents, yeah.
Thank you all.
And you were very quiet, so I'm gonna pick on you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I thought it was a very good meeting. I wanted to hear what you had to say and what the other people had to say. So thank you for putting the meeting together.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys, you know, actually coming. Thank you all for coming virtually, and thank you for coming in person. I appreciate the effort on both sides. And we're going to have these meetings always be hybrid because it may be more comfortable for someone to come virtually. We try to get the people that are in the room first, just because they made the trip. But we appreciate all the input, and thank you all for participating. Thank you, Mirela. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Ira. We really do appreciate, and there was another gentleman, and now I can't remember his name. Thank you all for participating and for the feedback. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Yeah.